Welcome! Today, we're uncorking the story of one of the oldest and, let's be honest, most misunderstood categories in the wine world, sweet wines. So, I want you to forget everything you think you know, because we are about to dive into a world that is incredibly rich, complex, and just absolutely fascinating. All right, let's just get the big question out of the way right now. When you hear sweet wine, does your mind immediately jump to dessert? That sticky, cloying afterthought to a big meal? Well, you're not alone if it does, but I'm here to tell you that is just one tiny, tiny piece of a much, much bigger story. First off, let's get one thing straight. Sweet wine is ancient. I'm not talking about your grandmother's sherry. I mean, we're going way back to ancient Rome where they were boiling down grape juice and drying grapes on straw mats, treating it like a vital food source. Then fast forward to the Middle Ages, and this amazing happy accident happens. A fungus they called noble rot, and it completely changes the game. And by the 17th century, they were creating fortified wines like port, literally engineering them to survive treacherous sea voyages. See, this isn't just a drink. It's a nectar with a serious, serious history. So, to really get our heads around this incredible world, here's the roadmap for our journey today. We're going to start with their almost mythical origins, then get into the cool science of how they're actually made. We'll meet the star grapes, take a little world tour of the key regions, learn how to pair them like a pro, and finally take a peek into the future. Ready? Let's go. Okay, first up, nectar of the gods. Let's dive into why these wines were once considered nothing short of divine, and how we got from these ancient rituals to the pleasures we can still enjoy today. This quote really gets to the heart of it. We're not just talking about some forgotten beverage. In places like ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome, these intensely sweet wines were truly sacred. They were used in religious offerings, poured at the most important banquets, and even prescribed by doctors as medicine. To them, this really was the nectar of the gods. Okay, so how do winemakers get that luscious sweetness without just, dumping in a bag of sugar? Well, it's this fascinating dance between nature, a whole lot of patience, and some clever science. Let's get into how these grapes are transformed into liquid gold. It all comes down to one fundamental concept: sugar concentration. So here's the deal. During fermentation, yeast eats sugar to create alcohol. Simple enough, right? But if you want a sweet wine, you need sugar left over after the yeast is full and has done its job. The only way to do that naturally is to start with grapes that have an unbelievably high sugar-to-water ratio. You've got to supercharge the juice from the very beginning. And to get there, winemakers have developed 5 absolutely ingenious methods. They can do a late harvest, just leaving the grapes on the vine to get extra ripe and raisiny. They can use the pasito method, drying the grapes on mats after picking. They can harness that magic fungus you mentioned, noble rot. They can even wait for the grapes to literally freeze on the vine to create ice wine. Or they can just hit the pause button on fermentation by adding a spirit, like brandy. That's called fortification. And each one of these paths leads to a totally unique and delicious style of wine. Let's take a closer look at this noble rot, or Botrytis cinerea, if you want to get technical. Now, it sounds like something you'd want to get rid of, right? A fungus. But no. Under these very specific conditions, think misty mornings and sunny afternoons, this fungus gently pierces the grape skin. This lets the water evaporate, basically turning the grape into a little raisin, a flavor bomb that concentrates not just the sugar, but the acidity and all these incredible honeyed, nutty flavors. It is the secret behind some of the world's most legendary wines, like French Sauternes.
And then you've got ice wine, which is every bit as extreme as it sounds. Winemakers in places like Canada and Germany have to wait for a hard freeze, often harvesting in the dead of night at dangerously low temperatures. They press these grapes while they are still frozen solid, like little marbles. All the water stays behind as ice crystals, and what trickles out is this tiny, precious, intensely concentrated nectar. Talk about high-risk, high-reward winemaking. But look, all these incredible methods don't mean a thing if you don't have the right raw materials. So now it's time to meet the star players, the key grape varieties that are the absolute heart and soul of the sweet wine world.
On the white grape side, you've got some absolute superstars. Semillon is the undisputed queen of Sauternes. Its thin skin makes it the perfect host for that noble rot. Then there's Riesling, a German icon and a true chameleon that can do everything from late harvest to ice wine, always keeping this incredible zippy acidity. Chenin Blanc from France's Loire Valley has that same vibrant electric quality.
And of course, Moscato Bianco, the aromatic, floral grape behind Italy's famously light and fizzy sweet wines. Now, while they're a bit less common, red grapes can also produce some absolutely stunning sweet wines. Touriga Nacional is the powerful, structured backbone of port from Portugal. In California, Zinfandel can be left on the vine to create these rich, jammy, almost decadent wines. And get this, even Malbec in Argentina is used to make some surprisingly lush and complex sweet styles.
Okay, so we know the methods, we know the grapes. Now let's take a quick whirlwind tour of the places where all this magic happens. We're talking about the iconic regions that have built their entire reputations on these liquid treasures. This chart really shows you that amazing connection between a place, its grape, and its unique flavor. So in Sauternes, France, Sémillon gives you those classic notes of honey, apricot, and almonds. Head over to Portugal's Douro Valley, and Touriga Nacional is all about those deep, spicy flavors of dried figs and caramel you find in port. Then in Germany's Mosel region, Riesling's bright green apple and citrus notes are just electric. And you can't forget Tokaj in Hungary, where the ferment grape creates these legendary wines that taste like candied orange, ginger, and honey. It's like a flavor map of the world.
But listen, all this knowledge isn't much fun if you don't put it to use, right? So how do you actually enjoy these wines? Well, learning just a few tricks for tasting and pairing them unlocks a whole new universe of appreciation.
When it comes to pairing, it really boils down to two simple ideas. First, you can go for contrast. This is where you use opposing flavors to create a really cool balance. The classic example? The intense saltiness of a blue cheese just cutting right through the rich sweetness of a port. It's a wow moment. The other way is complementation, where you match similar flavors. So the caramel notes in a tawny port will echo and boost the caramel in a creme brulee, making both taste even better. Opposites attract, or like with like. Simple. And here are some can't miss, absolutely classic pairings to get you started. The decadent richness of foie gras with the piercing acidity of a Sauternes is just legendary. That salty sweet perfection of Roquefort cheese with port is a must-try. A bright, tangy fruit tart absolutely sings next to a German Riesling. And trust me on this, you haven't lived until you've tried the Italian tradition of dipping a crunchy almond biscotti into a glass of nutty Vinsanto. It is sublime.
Okay, finally, let's look to the horizon. In a world of constantly changing tastes and, of course, a changing climate, what does the future actually hold for this ancient, historic wine category? Well, winemakers are definitely navigating some major forces. Climate change is a massive challenge. Those deep freezes needed for ice wine, they're becoming rarer and more unpredictable. At the same time, you've got consumer tastes shifting, with many people looking for lighter, fresher styles of wine, and producers are responding to that. But through it all, there's this incredible wave of innovation driven by sustainability, with more and more winemakers embracing organic and biodynamic farming to protect these unique vineyards for the long haul. Ultimately, when you look at all the variables, the climate, the market trends, the technology, it really all boils down to this. There is one factor that's more important than anything else, and that one thing is our collective will to preserve this incredible, centuries-old legacy so that future generations can discover and enjoy these wines too. Which leaves us with this final big question. In a world that's constantly moving and changing, what will these ancient wines taste like in the future? Well, the only real way to find out is to keep tasting them, keep exploring them, and keep talking about them. So next time you see a sweet wine on a menu, don't just dismiss it as a dessert wine. Be curious. Give it a try. You might just be tasting a piece of history and a little glimpse of its future. Thanks for joining me on this sweet journey.